All right, this is Steve Longhurst from Just Fabulous welcoming Carla Malden and her lovely daughter, Cammie. Welcome to Just Fabulous.
Thank you very much for having us.
We're delighted to have you and really touched by your book and really appreciate you coming down to Palm Springs to share your story with us. Can you tell us a little bit about your book and about your daughter and about your trip to Just Fabulous?
The book is called Afterimage, A Broken-Hearted Memoir of a Charmed Life, and it's the very personal story of my transition to widowhood. It's about basically a last year and a first year, and the transition between the two, the last year of my husband's life and pretty much my whole life up to that point, and the first year after his death and what will be the rest of my life.
How did you come up with the title?
Well, an afterimage is actually a physiological phenomenon that happens when you look at a really bright light source and then look away, and the image seems to remain. And to me, that was the metaphor for an afterimage of the heart when you lose someone.
Wow, that's a great, I'm glad you told me that. That's a great symbol. Do you have any kind of a personal story or synopsis, something from the book that you'd want to share with our customers that really is a powerful message on dealing with, overcoming tragedy and dealing with somebody you love?
Well, it's really, I don't think of it as any kind of self-help book at all. It's just my personal story, but it's been really gratifying to discover that there seem to be a remarkable number of sort of points of intersection with other people's stories, that there's some commonality in the grieving process, and I liken the worst of grieving to sort of patting your stomach and rubbing your head at the same time, because you're out in the world and you're at dinner with a friend, but you're really in the business of grieving.
Right.
You're at the symphony, but you're really in the business of grieving. So when I sat down to write the book, even though that was a really painful and agonizing thing to do and place to be, it was also a relief.
Was it cathartic for you?
Place. I've been asked that question a lot.
Do you hate that word?
No, I don't hate the word, but the answer really is no. I wouldn't call it catharsis. I would just say that there was this relief in sort of being one place, body, mind, and soul, as opposed to trying to function in the world when you're really doing something else.
And what about you, Cammie? Did you participate with Mom in the book, or did you share your feelings with her about the book? And
well, obviously while we were kind of, watching my father battle cancer, I was kind of doing my own writing too, just to help me get through it. And we were talking, of course, like every day and every night. So I think this experience is almost like overlapping with us. So a lot of what she says in the book is probably things that I was feeling and thinking too. And she read my writing that I was doing while, I did writing before and after my father died too, just to kind of like know that I could always remember him. I would write down stories and anecdotes that I know I would always have with me. So I think, I almost did the same type of thing as she did when writing the book. I just didn't take it to the full extent.
And also, I punctuated the chronology of the story, as it were, with something I call snapshots, which are basically flashbacks, because for me, part of the grieving experience, and again, I've heard this echoed from other people, is that it kind of goes all over time. You jump to the future and say, how am I going to do that? And you jump to the past to remember. So I did these little flashbacks to punctuate the story, and Cammie did help me come up with some of those. I wanted a certain number of them between chapters, and she helped me think of what to do with that.
I had a similar experience because my mother, who I was very close to, I can tell that you're really close to your mom, which is a great thing. My mom died from pancreatic cancer, and she was my inspiration to open this store, because I realized that you really have to follow your heart and do what you love, and that one of the best things about being there for her was I knew that there was no unfinished business, meaning everything that needed to be said, everything between us. How was that experience with your dad? Were you able to have that kind of a...
I don't regret anything, but probably not as much as I had imagined I would have had, because I knew in the back of my mind that he was probably going to die, but I never really believed it, and I think the same with her. So I just never really got to that point, like on a random day where I said to him, everything I wanted to say, until it was basically the last minute that he was dying. But luckily we had many, many hours. He was already kind of like in a different state, but in that in those last hours, I did tell him everything, and he knew. I know that he knew it anyway. He knew that how both of us felt about him. It wasn't. I don't know, we don't hide feelings in our family, but I mean, I never had that kind of final talk with him as a back and forth conversation, really.
Sort of as a way to deal with my regret about that, I have convinced myself that he really didn't want that, and I really don't think he did.
Okay, on to some interesting stuff, too. What was it like to grow up as Carl Malden's daughter and granddaughter? That's a really exciting, interesting for people who are not, who don't have that kind of a situation living in Hollywood. And, what was that like for you growing up?
Well, I'll tell you a really brief anecdote, which is that I went to Westlake School in Bel Air when I was growing up, and I think I was in about the 3rd grade, and I came out one afternoon, and my French teacher said to me, "Carla, your gardener is here to pick you up." And that was my father. So it wasn't at all glamorous or exciting. That was my father. He had this sort of everyman quality that I think people related to in him.
Definitely.
And glamorous and exciting would not be words I would use to describe my childhood at all. He was a fabulous father.
He seemed like a great guy. And I love those American Express. And I love those American Express commercials.
Yes, everybody does.
Right. And Cammie, you're now studying at AFI. What's your plan?
Well, I am in the editing discipline at AFI, which is the American Film Institute, and so I've been editing films all year, and I'm working as an editor right now for the summer, and then I'll go back to school next year and make a few thesis films, and hopefully get those out there, and then I plan on being an editor and working in film, and maybe moving into some producing and directing as I kind of grow as an editor.
That's great.